Hi guys and welcome back. I am with David Bishop. He is a broadcasting manager. David, how are you doing?
Good, thanks, and you?
I'm good. You guys probably already know that voice. Okay, so David, how did you get started in the broadcasting industry?
Sure. Well, it was something I always wanted to do. When I was about 12, I was on holiday in South Africa and I heard a guy on, back then I think it was still called Radio 5, it's now 5FM, a guy called Alex J, and I knew that was what I wanted to do. And then after school, things sort of conspired, and Radio Wave at that stage had just opened up, and I thankfully knew the owner, and I basically walked up to him one night and said, I want a job, and
yes, you got
that's
it.
that.
So what do you need to become a radio personality? I mean, you have a very dynamic voice. Is that all it takes?
I think the voice is definitely important. I've done various different roles in radio, obviously, and there's different requirements for different roles. Being a DJ on air, you need a different sort of skill set to what I'm doing at the moment, where I'm the broadcast editor of Future Media News. Obviously, that's sort of a lot stricter. DJs get away with saying things that news people don't get away with saying. But I suppose the most important, general knowledge, thirst for knowledge, somebody who reads widely is always really important. Everyone always wants to talk about qualifications. I think, again, for the Future Media News side of things with the journalism, perhaps their qualifications are a bit more important, and it would help to study journalism. But to get into radio and to be a DJ, there's no real qualification. You can go and study, you can go and do some courses and stuff, but it's also a lot sort of down to personality.
Yeah, okay. Now, as the broadcasting industry is advancing, do you think at the end of the day what's going to happen is that because there's so much people in the industry that you will need to look at the qualifications then, or what you say you'd rather look at the personality than the qualifications?
Yeah, I still think that the personality, the type of person is probably more important than qualifications. I mean, like you say, it is getting a bit more saturated now. We're nowhere near the levels of South Africa or Europe or the United States, where there are queues and queues of people just waiting to take your job. Here, I suppose radio people still have a bit more job security. We don't have to worry quite as much, but it doesn't mean we can rest. I mean, you still obviously have to keep it up. I think, I suppose qualifications, I mean, were qualifications to be a factor necessarily? I mean, I studied a Bachelor of Commerce, which has nothing to do with broadcasting and with radio. It's obviously helped. And I mean, like I said, a thirst for knowledge and somebody who reads widely. So if you want to go and study something, then it's never going to be detrimental.
Yeah. So as a broadcasting manager, what is it that you do on a day-to-day basis?
Lots and lots. At the moment, I'm wearing a couple of different hats at the moment because I'm still actually broadcasting. So I'm not just providing an editorial role. I suppose ideally, one day I'll step back and I'll be more of an editor and be able to provide more of an oversight. I am doing that over and above, but it's also quite nice to not just be sitting back and doing that. It's nice to still be able to get to compile bulletins, to get to present bulletins, to go on air. There's that little bit of a rush when you go on air, so it's nice to not have lost that. And I think were I to step back completely and just be an editor, I definitely miss that part.
Okay, cool. I know that you're always in the interviewing seat if it comes to in the interviewer seat. And going back to setting up a news bulletin, what does that specifically entail, especially in the radio industry? I mean, you constantly have to deliver news that's coming in. What's that process like? Yeah,
so we do have, like you say, we've got hourly deadlines. News changes all the time, but it also doesn't necessarily change all the time. There are certain stories that you can get and you can expand on. So we can run a story in the morning, and then later on in the day we can have additional information to that story. But essentially, you go and find your stories. We obviously try to find local content as much as we possibly can, and that includes getting hold of people, phoning people up, getting those voice, the sound bites, so that you can have somebody else's voice, so that it's not just us saying what somebody else is saying, and using the wires a lot, going online. Twitter is very beneficial for sourcing news and finding stories. Obviously, everything still needs to be verified, fact-checked. You don't want to put out any information that you just happened to see. You want to make sure that it is valid and it is information that you can share with your listeners. So we do, as you say, we do hourly news. We carry 4 stories in our bulletins. Our bigger bulletins carry 5. And generally we'll look at 1 or 2 Namibian stories, a South African or African, and a world story where we can.
Now, the technical aspect of sound is so interesting but intricate as well. Can you explain what it takes to actually run a broadcasting station? The infrastructure that is written. Okay, we don't have to go deep into the engineering, but just an overall view.
I'd say our IT guy would be better suited for that. He recently went on a bit of a road trip. We're upgrading our antennas and our broadcast equipment. So he was included hiking all the way up to the top of Rossing Mountain to go and look at our equipment that's servicing the coast. But I mean, essentially, you can these days. You can broadcast without all the technical, I mean, because these days with cell phones, with the internet, there are a lot of people that are broadcasting and putting content out there. But yeah, obviously with the radio station, the formalities, it becomes a bit more complicated with the infrastructure and the decent recording equipment and broadcast equipment that can get us to all the far reaches of the country. That becomes a lot more technical and a lot more expensive.
Yeah, as a media student, we always get asked this one question every single year. Do you think that radio is going to die out? Do you think print is going to die out? I want to hear your take on radio specifically.
Was it MTV or VH1 that started off with the Buggles and video killed the radio star? So they've been saying it and saying it and saying it and saying it. I don't think radio is going anywhere. Radio is evolving. Internationally, I know radio is going away from the analog system with FM that we're still using here, and they're going into DAB digital radio, which has a lot of benefits, but obviously for a country like Namibia, a lot of drawbacks as well. But yeah, I don't think radio is going anywhere. It's changing, and it's had to change. I mean, especially radio news at one stage, that was the go-to. Newspapers could only, if something happened today, the newspaper could only run it tomorrow, or perhaps overseas if they had an evening edition could run it in the evening. TV would generally wait for the TV news that night. There's a lot more production, the filming and editing that needed to go in there. So radio had that immediacy, and it was, if you wanted the news, that it can be on in the background. It's part of your life while you're doing other things. So there's a bit of an intimacy there that I don't see going away.
Yeah, no, that is really cool. We already spoke about the personality that you need for radio. What would be the hosting styles that the different personalities have? Can you just mention a few? I know there's probably a lot.
There are loads, and I think one of the skills, I suppose, could be adaptability. I started my radio life mostly concentrating on a nighttime show, which is a very different type of radio. That one's a very intimate and very personal. People that are foregoing their TV watching to listen to the radio have got a lot of buy-in. I moved to morning radio, which is a lot more high energy, a completely different type. I've done afternoon drive, morning. So I think if you can be adaptable, that'll definitely help. There are people that are, you can see them and you can hear them, and okay, that's an amazing morning jock, but that's all they can be. They won't be able to adapt. So if you've got the adaptability and you can bring across those different types of personalities based on the different show, and then every show adapts to the DJ's personality in a way as well. No two morning jocks are the same. No two afternoon drive shows are the same. So as much as you need to adapt, you'll also create your show around you in a way.
Yeah. Also going back to how radio station has been evolving now, I know a lot of podcasters, rather, they also start using visuals. Do you think that's also going to happen in studio? I know you guys do post a few stuff in studio, but will you be, videotaping what's going on?
There was a move at one stage, webcams in the studio were the biggest thing, and everyone wanted to see the DJs, and I think that's kind of moved on a bit. I know Omalunga, one of our stations, They are very active on live social video, sharing while they're broadcasting at the same time, and that's very popular there. So I suppose it depends on the market. DJs are having to pick up new skills, and they're having to do more than just sit down and talk rubbish for 3 hours. So they probably are there is going to be call for additional content, whether it's during the show or whether it's additional content after the show. And people, you know, especially if they want to be more part of the DJ's life, they'll start demanding that. I'm not sure exactly what format it's going to take, or whether it's going to be live in the studio, or whether we pass that. You know, I think a lot of people sort of, when the webcam in the studio idea came out, is when you listen to the radio and you think, this is so amazing, I want to see what's going on in there because it's such high energy and these guys must be having so much fun. The problem with that is that's for that 3 minutes that the microphone is on, and then when that's off, it's the normal task. So then you're basically just watching someone work.
Yeah. And with the visuals coming in now, so have you ever went to studio with just your pajamas, you know, like, no?
No, we've done circus days and theme days where we've dressed up specifically for the occasion. And I know during the Winter Nights campaign that happens, there we specifically have DJs dressing up in onesies and pajamas because of the theme. But no, I don't think the whole idea of the newscaster where you're wearing the suit and tie and the shorts underneath. You know, DJs don't really dress up anyway. It is shorts and t-shirt. So
it is what it is. What you see him in the shop wearing, that's what he wears.
That's what they were wearing at work, yeah.
Okay, and what's the most fun thing to do being a radio personality, or what do you enjoy most about it?
Sure. I think it's that rush, I suppose, that you enjoy the most. Being on air, being part of somebody's life. Like I say, with my career, things have been different. With the night show, I had very close relations.
To you.
Thank you.
And we'll definitely see each other around again. Guys, so stay tuned for the next profession, and sit back and relax and enjoy the show.